Yo, what is WT YBP Gang, YBP Nation, YBP Boxing, YBP MMA, and I'm coming back at y'all with main event prediction for this weekend. UFC Abu Dhabi, I believe it is. UMAR NURMAGOMEDOV going up against CORY SANDHAGEN. This is a fight that I broke down actually a year ago. Y'all can dig in my channel, try to find that vid. But at the time, my prediction was CORY SANDHAGEN, and I got a lot of flack for that. People were coming at me. They were like, what are you talking about? Like, blah, 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 this and that. And, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm changing my pick, okay? I'm a new man. I think I've seen just the recent fights I've seen with Umar and the recent fights I've seen with CORY SANDHAGEN have led me to believe that I think Umar might have the slight edge. Now, with that being said, this could be an Ikram Whitaker situation where we see a guy who has a lot of finishes, has a lot of momentum, but just isn't really that good, and they get exposed to that top level. I don't know, because going to the Ikram Whitaker fight, I was heavy on Ikram. I thought Ikram. The weird part about that fight was I thought that Whitaker would beat Hamza, but I thought Ikram would beat Whitaker. Weird situation. So, and I've been one to say that don't get so sucked into the hype of these Russian fighters. Shamil Gatsiev. Who else got fraud checked? There's some people who got some Russians that got fraud checked. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but Ikram was the big one. Shamil Gatsiev, that was another one. There's a couple coming. I think Sharon might get fraud checked this weekend, but you can't buy into the hype too much. I think we see a last name, we see a country, we see a fight style, and we just get so wrapped up like, oh, that's the future. Because he looks like a Khabib. He looks like an Islam. He looks like that next guy up. But you just can't assume, especially against these elite guys who have been doing this at the highest level. So, but with that being said, I think I'm going to fall for it again. I got Umar because I think he's disciplined. He's going to stick to a game plan. He's going to go out there and wrestle. And I think the biggest change that I had from my prediction prior to this is I don't think, at the time, I thought CORY SANDHAGEN was a top 5 striker in the UFC at the time. And looking back, I think that was a stupid take, honestly. I've been watching this sport for a long time. I think I was glazing a little bit, I think I was a fan of CORY, a fan of what he does, but yeah, I was glazing a little bit there. Definitely not a top 5 striker in the UFC. I think, but in his own right, he's a good striker, but honestly, I feel like his lean towards wrestling is almost like, his striking is almost digressed. It doesn't seem as good as it was before from what we've seen. And Umar's always improving his striking. Even though he did get dropped in the Beksa fight and he kind of leaned on that wrestling. We saw the power in the Harney-Barcelos fight. We know he can go, throughout a 3-round fight and just strike. Obviously, that striking is there to set up the wrestling, but he can go out there and knock people out. That Harney-Barcelos, that was a surprise. And, he has nice kicks. He has a nice hook. Just a good all-around striking style. He's very quick on his feet. You could even argue that he's quicker than CORY SANDHAGEN. And CORY can be taken down. We saw in the Aljo fight. Obviously, Aljo is a way better grappler. I'm one of the biggest Aljo fans out there, and I'll be the first to say I think Aljo's the best grappler in the entirety of the UFC. You could even, just with the back takes, the wrestling, all that type of stuff. Credit to Bilal. Bilal's, making his way up, but Aljo, the way he was able to just take that back and make it look so easy, I think that's something that only really Aljo can do. But Umar's right there. Umar has some really good grappling. Maybe not the back takes at that level, but Umar can wrestle. He might even be a better wrestler maybe than Aljamain Sterling. But what separates Aljo is that BJJ. I don't know if the BJJ is quite there, but the wrestling's there, the top control's there, the heavy pressure. So if this fight goes to the later rounds, maybe it does get a little interesting, but I feel like, or maybe it doesn't. I think Umar could very well wrestle for 5 rounds and dominate CORY for 5 rounds with the wrestling. I think he's just so much better. I think people are going to get wrapped around in the fact that CORY has now found his offensive wrestling game and found that avenue to win fights. He doesn't necessarily have to strike with people for 5 rounds. He can find a safer way to win. They're going to get wrapped into that and be like, oh, because he can offensively wrestle, oh, all of a sudden now he can defend takedown. That's not necessarily the case. We saw that last weekend with CLD. We saw wrinkles of his offensive wrestling in his previous fight with, I believe the guy, it was Claudio Ribeiro. We saw those wrinkles. But then in the fight with Gregory Rodriguez, a solid grappler in himself, he couldn't defend the takedowns. So I think it's going to be a similar case. I think the wrestling is too much for CORY, and I don't think the striking disparity or the finishing ability is going to be I don't think he has the striking ability or the damage really like the powers in the shots to really do enough on the feet to negate the grappling that Umar will be able to put onto him and the control that he'll be able to sustain in the fight. And you add on the fact that, you know, Umar has that finishing ability. We know Corey can be finished by submission. We saw Aljamain do it. I don't think Umar's that far off with the wrestling ability that he has, and he can submit people just the same way. So the official pick will be UMAR NURMAGOMEDOV by second round submission. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes to a decision. Either way, I think he'll dominate, and I think he'll make it look easy. But Corey's always live. You know, we haven't seen Umar really tested at the elite level. So if Corey can make the fight go a little later, make it interesting, you know, we can see. But I just think the wrestling is just a little too much, and I don't think Corey's really ready for what he has to offer. And, you know, like I said, I think just because he can offensively wrestle doesn't mean that he can defensively wrestle, and Umar's going to show that. And like I said, I can trust him. Even though if he might get rocked on the feet, I know that he'll go out there and establish a grapple-heavy strategy. He's not going to go out there and try to outstrike this guy. He knows the avenue to which he is better than this guy, and he's going to be disciplined. He's going to have Khabib Nurmagomedov in his corner. I've never seen a fighter lose with Khabib Nurmagomedov in his corner. Take that with what you will. But yeah, I mean, you can't be too confident. I wouldn't even, if I was betting on the fight, I wouldn't even be so confident to bet him at those odds. I think he's way too big of an underdog, way too big of a favorite given the opponent that he's fighting. But with all that he's shown in his career, with all that is around him, the people that are training with him, the rapid improvements that he made fight to fight, you got to trust in him. You got to know that he's going to make those improvements and he's going to improve in this fight and show leaps and bounds and really surpass those expectations to show that he is the next guy at bantamweight and he's a future champion. So give me Umar NURMAGOMEDOV, the future, the prospect, the future champ. Leave a like, subscribe. Peace out, Oscar. You know what it is.